Why history repeats itself. Astrology returns us to the scene of the crime. Many of us are horrified that with this election we have turned back the hands of time. This is perhaps true in the linear moment, but what people don't realize is that time is cyclical in nature. Astrology is a tool that allows us to view large-scale themes and eras and provide perspective as to where we are in the cycle. And like in our personal lives, if previous matters are not fully resolved or integrated, cosmic time returns us back to the scene of the crime. One of the main reasons we are here on Earth is to shed light on our shadows and heal and reintegrate them. The same is true for a nation. This election was a cry for help and revealed how deeply mentally and emotionally traumatized many of us are. But it is also likely that we subconsciously decided we would accelerate the process of soul-desired change by bringing everything ugly out into the open. Much of it has to do with the eventual deconstruction of the inner and outer patriarchal model, the goal of Pluto in Capricorn. The external backlash has more to do with the fear that accompanies killing off the ego. And regarding polarity, it is likely that because we actually have made strides in equality and acceptance, this pushback is the last gasp of a dying reality construct. When it comes to history, comparisons to Hitler, although extreme, do bear some consideration, as Uranus, planet of upheaval, was as now in Aries, which has a military demagogue-like quality. But like the 1930s, there will eventually be greater focus on workers' rights, the environment, working conditions, and equitable pay. And this will, like then, require a strong progressive movement. We oftentimes don't think we need something until it is gone, which then inspires us to take action. The realization that we must create a more proletarian government is now more urgently considered because of the possible theft of everything we recently just acquired and hold dear. Pluto, the destroyer, is now located in the same sign it was in the 1760s and 1770s during the time of the first American Revolution. Right now, we are basically in the year 1770, so like our national origins, further oppression will create the climate for our next true liberation. Speaking of Pluto, in this election I did feel the plutocrats would win, and that's why I assumed that Hillary would be president. It wasn't from a place of idealism, but rather, once Bernie Sanders was marginalized, from resignation. Having been closely aligned with Wall Street Israel old school leaders, I believe that Secretary Clinton would be the chosen candidate to continue the agenda of the global elite. Perhaps Hillary wasn't bad enough or corrupt enough to lead the country swiftly downward in the race to the bottom. It is now likely that Trump will become the uber bankster president, the biggest shill and corporate puppet ever in American history. Turns out the ultimate insider establishment candidate did win in the end by conning us all. And for those who say to give him a chance, my observation is the same I give to clients asking about a failed love relationship. The only way this man will change is with a grand epiphany or a lobotomy. But from the meta perspective, if the long-term goal of the Pluto and Capricorn cycle is to decimate the patriarchy, then we may have to experience the most egregious, misogynistic form possible to wake up, as it seems many are doing. This emperor has no clothes, and the current president-elect may be just what the Molotov cocktail needs to blow this patriarchal pop stand. And please note that we are looking at major upheavals continuing to 2024 before this will all begin to work itself out. Some reporters have made comparison to Lincoln and the Reconstruction efforts. I agree that we are in a similar cycle. The last time Neptune was in Pisces, emancipation, redemption, and demagoguery was during the Civil War era of 1847 to 1861. Slavery was abolished, followed by a period of resistance and re-entrenchment by the powers that be. Here we are again, whereby positive social reforms are followed by an attempt to destroy or suppress inevitable progress. Likewise, we are experiencing a culture civil war, and this is tearing our country apart along a similar divide. To continue with more recent history, Jupiter expansion and Neptune illusion deception were in play during 9/11, and we are now experiencing another Jupiter-Neptune alignment, and are unfortunately seeing a lot of the old players re-emerging from the swamp. And currently Saturn, planet of structure and organization, is in the sign of Sagittarius, meaning and beliefs, in the same location that Pluto was in 2001, marking the event and re-traumatizing and demoralizing us in a similar fashion. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, the Uranus-Eris conjunction in Aries, Eris has a 560-year cycle, has been portending total chaos and disruption of the natural order of things. When bad is good, ignorance is applauded, hate revered, we can feel totally upended, and those on the losing side, from the micro, not macro perspective, because on the meta level we are all craving massive change and soul awakening, can be shocked and thrown into emotional anguish. But that is what darkness does. It intends to confuse, undermine, and pull us into fear. Now again, Hillary could have just as easily been the figurehead for this destruction, but maybe we didn't need a woman in charge of destroying America and igniting World War III. Let's leave it to the epitome of white male privilege, patriarchy, to do the job and turn the weapon on itself. But do not despair, because the future is coming despite this current slippage backward. While there may be a temporary winding of the clock, it is inevitable that the tides will move forward again once the pain of contraction and fear run their course. However, we must desire an enlightened future with all our hearts and participate in its formation. We can't run away, escape, leave the country, and boo or smirk from the sidelines. So yes, we have been here before, but rather than a dead repetitive circle, we must look at this as a temporary makeup class to clear us of our biases and national karma so that we can rise up the spiral of evolution. When might this happen? We're always in a state of evolution, de-evolution, but the next stage reset could be when Pluto moves into zero Aquarius in 2024. Not uncoincidentally, Mars was at zero Aquarius on election day, and when Trump takes office, the sun will enter Aquarius. This is probably the temporary beginning of the end so that we can regroup and build from a stronger foundation. And while the cycles of time are inevitable, the outcomes are not. What we consider bad events usually are the reemergence of the collective shadow. Unfortunately, on this duality plane, we generally need the shock of something to wake us up. So do not assume that all will turn out right if we just sit back while the next cycle repeats. We are meant to be conscious co-creators of our world, and the illusion of powerlessness is just that, an illusion. Right now, the surface absence of power and truth makes us desire them more, igniting unity and cooperation. And what does a conscious world look like? The precursor is actually America, but without its shadow. We have a sacred contract to become the first nation to bring freedom and individualism to the world. And this is a major pivot point to make a gigantic course correction. We must begin addressing the core wound of judgment and separation, and we experience it in the pain that comes out of divisiveness. As Albert Einstein pointed out, as the circle of light increases, so does its circumference of darkness. This moment, however challenging, should inspire us to clean up our individual shadows and locate the light and love within. In this way, we will bring into form the country and world we have always desired, with love and liberty for all. I'm Meta Astrologer Patrice Kamens.